as we take a live look here at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. 4:46 p.m. the local time. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is hoping his decision to pause plans for judicial reform might restore peace to Israel. For weeks, rowdy demonstrators have wreaked havoc. So what exactly is in his proposal? Jerusalem correspondent Daniel Cohen joining us now live from the Old City with the answers. Daniel.
Yeah, many people still asking themselves, what exactly is this all about? The judicial reform legislation proposes two main things: giving elected lawmakers power to override a judiciary that's dominated by the left with unchecked power to cancel any legislation it wants, and to stop judges from being able to appoint their own successors.
Prime Minister Netanyahu in a national address Monday night saying he's taking an opportunity to avoid civil war. He agreed to pause, not stop, judicial reform plans that he says will restore balance and strengthen Israeli democracy by giving elected lawmakers more say. Israel has no constitution. Since 1997, Israel's left-leaning Supreme Court has become very powerful, squashing almost 24 pieces of legislation it considers unreasonable.
This would not undercut democracy. In some respects, it would make Israel more democratic.
Alan Dershowitz is a Harvard law professor who describes himself as a traditional Democrat. He told a Jewish radio program it's not about what's in the proposals, but who's making them.
If exactly the same proposals had been made by a centrist government or a left-wing government, no one would notice. There'd be no demonstrations.
Netanyahu promised Israel's conservative base that returned him to power in November that he'd change the way judges are appointed. Right now, they're not picked by the government or the prime minister, but by a committee of judges and lawyers controlled by the Supreme Court. The judiciary is widely seen as a check on the right. Netanyahu wants a system like in the UK, where the parliament is supreme, not the courts.
If all of these reforms were enacted, it would turn Israel into, God forbid, Canada.
For 12 weeks, demonstrations have ramped up as the legislation drew closer to passage, with protesters saying the reforms mean the end of democracy. Dershowitz says that's not what this is about.
It's about the fact that judicial reform is being brought about by a government that frightens a lot of people. But for me, a good democracy requires not only majority rule, but minority rights.
Dershowitz and others believe compromise is necessary, perhaps changing the Knesset override of the Supreme Court from a simple majority, 61, to a higher threshold. Netanyahu promised to take the legislation back up in May when the Knesset reconvenes after a break for Passover. Emma?
All right, Daniel Cohen live for us in Jerusalem. Daniel, thank you. The White House also calling for compromise.